Hello, Mr. Kluge. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So we are now located in Astana, which these days hosts an international conference celebrating two declarations. First made 45 years ago in Almaty, and the second one 5 years ago in Astana. So the general theme of these declarations was about the importance and equal access to primary health care system. So what do you think are important milestones, if we talk globally, countries have made so far in this regard, and what is the role of Kazakhstan in this process?
First and foremost, I would like to congratulate Kazakhstan for the 45th anniversary of the Alma-Ata Declaration, the 5th anniversary of the Astana Declaration. Yesterday we had 70 countries coming together. Actually this week Astana is the center of global health really. And the countries were sharing their innovations in primary healthcare. I feel that 5 years ago, I was here in Astana, with the Astana Declaration. We succeeded to create a global primary healthcare movement rooted in strong ethical principles, but also implementing very practical solutions to each context. And Kazakhstan is the birthplace of primary healthcare. We were all very impressed that His Excellency President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev honored us with his personal presence and inspiring speech, because this is what we need in all countries, that primary healthcare is at the top of the political agenda. Because we saw that during the pandemic, the countries with a strong primary healthcare did much better than the other countries.
Yes, you mentioned pandemic, and I think when we talk about primary health care, we understand that this is a cornerstone of public healthcare systems, and we have experienced pandemic, which had dreadful consequences for all, I think, public healthcares all over the world, and I think that was one of the biggest challenges countries faced in decades so far. So the main question today, are we secured now, and what are important lessons we should learn from this recent pandemic?
I'm optimistic in the sense we learned a lot, but we are still not there. What has improved is that for political leadership globally, it's clear, without health, there is nothing. No economy, no social cohesion. So there is a need to invest in health and health systems. In primary healthcare, because there is where public health comes together. For example, case finding, when we needed people to go out and look for patients who are infected, we needed strong public health workforce, which is best located in the communities. But we also needed enough beds in the hospitals. We needed enough masks, for example, and tests. So this is what countries are preparing for better. But then the big issue we need is international solidarity. Kazakhstan has demonstrated it, has actually helped a lot of countries, but this was not the case everywhere. Some countries were hoarding the vaccines for themselves. That's why it is so important that countries agree by the World Health Assembly in May next year on what we call the pandemic agreement. Yesterday, President Tokayev and WHO Director General Dr. Tedros, in my presence, also the president of Dr. Azar Ginyat, discussed the importance of this pandemic accord, because countries need to agree to share, particularly if there is not enough. Because we know no one will be safe until everyone is safe.
Right, so if you can share some details, maybe what will include this pandemic agreement? What are we talking about?
Right. We know that most likely, if there's not a pandemic, it may well occur in what we call the Global South. And the North is asking that the Global South is then sharing all the genomic sequencing, the type of the virus, but of course the Global South would also then have its share from the vaccines. So the North and the South needs to come together in international solidarity and on a voluntary basis agree that we all need to share data, but also then the vaccines and the test. This is one issue. Second, that the WHO has a central role, and Dr. Tedros and me were very inspired that President Tokayev made a clear statement that it is WHO and only WHO, the lead agency, to coordinate internationally global health efforts. And then number 3, very important, is that countries are sharing the data and allowing WHO country missions to come to their countries, because certain countries were a little bit hesitant to share the information.
So can we say that so far now we as mankind are ready for the next possible pandemic or very and challenges that it bring to the public healthcare systems
We
globally?
still don't have the pandemic agreement. We are making a lot of progress because only then the countries will agree. We are much better, but it depends. For example, I always say, imagine that COVID-19 was spreading as fast as measles and with a mortality like Ebola. Then it could be much worse. So that is 3 elements that we need to keep in mind. Number 1 is surveillance through the wastewater. So you can quickly pick up if there is a dangerous virus somewhere, surveillance. Number 2 is the quality of indoor air. This is very important. We can, really avoid a lot of respiratory diseases if the air indoor and outdoor is pure. That's why the commitment of Kazakhstan to environmental change and climate change is very important. And number 3, going into the winter, all the vulnerable people, the elderly people, the sick people should get their vaccine, the booster for COVID, and in the other arm, the influenza vaccine.
Yes, this is very important. And if we're talking about challenges of healthcare system, of primary healthcare system, specifically in this region, what are they and how to solve these challenges?
The challenges we heard yesterday and also today are the same. There are 3 big ones. Number 1, very serious one, is shortage of health and care workers, particularly not enough doctors and nurses to work in the mountains, in the rural areas. So this is a huge challenge, number 1. Number 2, medicines. The latest medicines to treat cancer, diabetes are very, very expensive. Universality means everyone should have the right to have a life-saving medicine without being pushed into the poverty. And then the third challenge, not in Kazakhstan, but in some other countries, is that now the politicians think about something else than health. It's amazingly. Ministers here next door are telling me, particularly from the West, that we just lost 7 million people globally due to the pandemic. And already some countries, they're more busy, and I understand, with defense, with securing energy, and they forget already about health. So we need to keep health at the top of the political agenda. That's why it was so inspiring that President Tokayev, in front of 70 countries yesterday, made it very clear, health is the basis of society.
So it should be a priority of all the nations on the planet. And the current virus pandemic showed us.
It showed it very clearly. Yes. If not, we have to close the borders, the economy is collapsing, and then we have another pandemic, which we didn't talk about, the mental health. So much effect now with these lockdowns on the mental health of the children. This is in every country. We just finished a survey in 44 countries, and in many countries, the percentage of young girls who feels lonely most of the time or always increased from 15 to 30%. We cannot lose our next generation.
Right. And if to be back to this conference, and the idea of this conference, one of these ideas was turning policies in primary healthcare to practices. And in this regard, President of Kazakhstan offered to create the coalition of countries on primary healthcare. Will this initiative be helpful in solving the challenges of healthcare system now? And will it help countries to cooperate in this regard more closely on practical level?
Actually, Dr. Tedros and me were very inspired because this is a kind of a voluntary mechanism which works in these geopolitical challenging times the best. That you start with countries which are enthusiastic. And Dr. Tedros suggested that Kazakhstan at the United Nations General Assembly in New York will start creating this coalition, of course with a very strong support of Dr. Tedros, of myself. It is what is needed. Because what we heard yesterday, countries are implementing, but we don't know enough of each other. So with WHO facilitation, this kind of exchange, both of successes and also of some mistakes, is very important because there is no time. So why I, as a particular country, would have to make the same mistake as other country did already. So we are very, very enthusiastic and we're going to give full support.
So will it be practical tool for,
It will be a very practical tool.
promoting cooperation, right?
Absolutely. Cooperation, political commitment, but also with the healthcare providers. So that's the beauty at the top level, but also at the community level. And together with the youth, because that's a great innovation that we had 5 years ago in Astana. The youth asked to be involved. Yesterday, the declaration of the conference was purely led by the youth, which is now seen as an equal partner in health and well-being decision-making.
Thank you, Mr. Kluge, for your
Graag
time
gedaan.
and for your answers. We
Graag
very
gedaan.
appreciate it. Thank
Thank
you.